Hey squad, Sykes here, and thank you for taking the time out to click on this video. If you enjoy what you see, then please make sure you leave a like, head over to InstallationX and subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications for more Xbox and Halo Infinite content. So recently, 343 have released a new video on the Halo channel, Ask 343, and it was headed up by John Junishek, the community manager for 343, and he was asking Quinn Del Hoyo, who is the lead Sandbox designer on Halo Infinite, a load of questions from the community in a follow-up to last month's blog post about the Sandbox for Halo Infinite. And there was a lot of interesting questions asked to Quinn, and he did a very good job, in my opinion, of answering them. And he's shone the light on some new details around the Sandbox, which I thought I'd break down for you today and give you the rough nuts and bolts of what we can expect moving forward with Halo Sandbox. So first up, Quinn was asked whether weapon tuning for multiplayer would affect weapon tuning for campaign. Now, what the Sandbox team have been trying to do is they've been trying to put tools in place to allow tuning to not affect either side of the game. So he was going on about if the meta was to change in multiplayer, then it wouldn't necessarily affect the balance of weapons in the campaign if they had to tune certain weapons for multiplayer. So basically, they're trying to keep everything pretty cohesive across the game, but they do understand that changes may occur at some point down the line, especially in the multiplayer part of the game, and therefore they're trying to make sure it doesn't overly or adversely affect the campaign. And he gave an example of certainly damage outputs. If they had to change a damage output for a weapon in multiplayer, they wouldn't want it overly affecting the weapon in campaign if it meant that you were shredding through grunts and brutes really easily, which was quite good. The question was asked whether you will be able to hijack or skyjack a Banshee using the grapple shot, and the answer is yes, you will be able to. But obviously Quinn was going and saying it's not going to be like super easy, its skill's going to be involved, positioning, the rest of it timing. But the answer in short is yes, we are going to be able to try and skyjack a Banshee with the grapple shot, which is ridiculously exciting and is probably going to give me motivation to try and catch that perfect clip. Another question was also asked about whether the grapple shot can be used to pick weapons up from the floor in campaign and or multiplayer, and the answer is yes, you can use it to pick up weapons that are lying around. I'm curious about how that's going to work, whether it's automatically going to equip the weapon or whether it's going to give you the option to swap the weapon. I'm quite intrigued about that, about how it's actually going to work mechanically in terms of controls and what it's going to look like on your screen in first person. But yes, the answer is you can pick up weapons off the floor with the grapple shot. The next question was then talking about someone being confused about weapons on day one will be assuredly different after multiple updates and patches, and the person was just wanting for a bit more clarification on that, saying whether the weapons included in the base game or in the 1.0 version will be affected, or simply that new weapons will be added. And Quinn said, to be honest, it's yes to both. So yes, weapons will be altered over time. They will be adjusted depending on how the game is moving forward and the meta changes. And they will definitely be looking at adding brand new weapons, classic weapons, and legacy weapons in the future. And that's kind of really the main thread going through this. And I think why a lot of people may be excited about this if you haven't had to watch it yet is there's really a lot of talk about just because the weapon's not there at the moment, or we haven't got a certain type of weapon there at the moment, it doesn't mean it's never going to arrive in the game. But Quinn did make mention of certain things like tuning around damage, around accuracy, and maybe around ammo capacities at pickup. They're definitely something that they're going to monitor closely and will maybe change over time as the game progresses. The next question was on about damage types of bullets and plasma. So the person mentioned that the bullet is a standard damage type, plasma is a standard shield stripping one. He said, what damage does the Ravager have, and what does it specialize in? So Quinn made a really cool point about how the Ravager has different plasma, or a different appearance in the red plasma, as it's going to work slightly different to the traditional blue plasma of the Covenant weapons, which usually burns hotter and overheats. So it means that it's unlikely, potentially, that the brute weapons such as the Ravager that rely on red plasma are not going to have the overheating capacity like the blue plasma weapons have, like the plasma rifle or the beam rifle and whatnot. But there's going to be, with the Ravager in particular, it's being a burst weapon, but you get to choose between whether you focus all your ammo on one target or whether you spread. So it kind of plays in different settings or how you want to have your preferred playstyle, but he didn't really go much else into anything other than that. But he did say that there are surprises in store for the Ravager, which means we might be seeing something to do with that kind of blade-like front it has, which I think would be really cool if we could use that or have some kind of animation around that. So then there was the next question about the idea of equipment is earned via combat or scavenging the play space, and the person just wanted a little bit more clarification on what that meant. And basically, equipment's going to work in multiplayer similar to any other pickup. It's going to be positioned on the map, and you will have to go and contest it in order to gain possession of it, or you will have to kill the player that is in possession of that equipment item, and they will drop it and you can loot it. But what was really, really interesting about this question is he specifically made mention that there will be no meters or build-ups. So that kind of confirms to me that the idea of something like the rec level build-up that we had in Warzone in Halo 5, that's gone. That's not going to be there, which is very interesting about how they're going to move forward with that. I'm not surprised, because it looks like the rec system is really being kind of put to bed and laid to rest, which, you know, has positives and negatives, I guess, but it's definitely no meters and no build-ups, according to Quinn, in multiplayer that we know of so far. Now, this is probably my favourite part of the actual entire video, when they made mention of someone had figured out that the Warthog had lost its front left tyre in the gameplay demo from the summer when it ran over the suicide grunt. And basically, he was asking whether that was a new feature of vehicles in the sandbox, or they were asking whether that was a new feature of the sandbox. And Quinn was like, that's very astute. Yes, it was damaged. It is going to be a new feature. He's going to tease it a bit, but there's more to come. Basically, they're going to introduce a new damage response system to vehicles, which is more than just the health of the vehicle. So what normally happens is the vehicle runs out of health, it will start to smoke, then it will get on fire, and then it will go boom. Basically, vehicles are going to respond slightly differently depending on where the damage is on those vehicles. So, for example, if you're blowing out your front tyres, or one of your front tyres on a Warthog, it's going to handle differently. It's going to respond differently. If you shoot out one of the wings on a Wasp or a Hornet, a Wasp or a Banshee, it's going to affect how it's going to fly. So it gives pilots an opportunity to challenge themselves a little bit, but also gives people on the ground more of an opportunity to figure out how they're going to take down a vehicle. And this was really exciting. I really like this idea. I'm really, really up for playing that. It's going to be good fun. Then the next one was about weapons, equipment, and vehicles. Clearly the star of the show in the blog post, but the person was asking about what's for grenades. So Quinn made mention that, you know, we've seen a few grenades already. We've seen plasma grenades and how they're kind of reacting. We've seen the spike grenades, which he mentions a bit more. And the other one that we saw a little bit for a couple of frames in the gameplay trailer, not the demo, the trailer, which is kind of like electrical shock grenade, which obviously we're going to hear more going forward. But basically, Quinn spoke a bit more about spike grenades in particular, and he was saying that because the spike grenades have blades in them, they will actually deal damage when they are stuck onto an enemy. So he made a point of, if you were to stick a grunt with a spike grenade, it will kill the grunt, and then obviously the grenade will detonate, protruding out those blades to nearby enemies, dealing damage that way, which sounded really, really cool. But he also mentioned that it's going to deal damage slightly differently depending on whether it's a grunt or whether it's a brute and a jackal, for example. And they are working hard to try and differentiate their offering of grenades. So he didn't really go into too many more details than we already knew. So that's, you know, worth keeping an eye out for in the future. Then we kind of got onto the interesting questions, which were going to come up. So person mentioned the Bulldog and how the Bulldog is supposed to be filling the role of a fast-firing shotgun. They were basically asking whether there would be space for an older or powerful shotgun to fit into the sandbox. Now, Quinn made mention that not all the weapons have been revealed yet, which I'm going to get to in a second. There is a weapon, a brand new weapon, that will be filling the role of the powerful shotgun. So what they're trying to do is they're clearly trying to differentiate that shotgun role between two weapons. And again, he did make mention that they're always looking to see when and where they can bring legacy weapons and whether they can come back or not. So it seems that they are very, very much interested in potentially bringing back older weapons, such as the classic shotgun, if they feel it can fit into the sandbox, and if they feel they can do it in the right way. So that's curious. I guess people can read that one way or another. Maybe it's going to be that's how they're going to fill out the sandbox over time and diversify the sandbox as this game progresses on. It is a service game after all. It's going to be around for a while. Or whether people are just going to look into this going, it's an insurance and policy, they're covering their backs. It depends on which side of the fence you sit on with that one. And then the next question was about the Magnum and whether the Magnum would come back, because obviously we've now got the Sidekick. And again, Quinn said they're always looking to bring in legacy weapons. They're always looking to bring things back, but they want to, again, do it in the right way at the right time. The Sidekick is a true sidearm, so it is very much for close range, and then the rifles are going to play more long range and mid range. But what was interesting is John then asked about the sidearm being more like the gunfighter Magnum from Halo 5, and Quinn was like, yeah, that's probably a good place to put it. So it's not, from what I can understand, is the Sidekick is not going to have the same range as a Magnum would. It's going to be more of a true sidearm, and then that's where we've got the variability of rifles, like the battle rifle, like the commando, maybe even the AR range changing slightly. That's going to allow us to shoot from those mid to long range opportunities. So those were all the significant questions from the blog post, from the video itself, and mainly touching on the majority of the blog post. So to recap where we're at the moment, just to give people an idea of where we're at with weapons moving forward, that we've had detailed renders submitted to us by 343. We have the BR-75, so the battle rifle. We know of that one. That was looking very, very nice. And again, leaning more heavily towards the classic style, which I would consider like the Halo 2 BR, which was my favourite weapon in Halo 5. I love that weapon. We have then the CQS-48 Bulldog shotgun, probably the most controversial weapon of the sandbox so far. But we've now got a high-end render of that. We now have a high-end render of the VK-78 Commando. Again, that was revealed in the gameplay demo back in July 2020. We now have the MA-40 Assault Rifle. Again, that's now been confirmed. A lot of people kind of said it was going to be along that lines. I know they've mentioned it previously, but we now have that full render. And the newest render, which is a gun that we haven't seen play yet for Halo Infinite, and probably the most surprising for me, is the Hydra. This gun looks so cool compared to where it was in Halo 5. I really didn't like the Hydra in Halo 5 as a gun. I didn't really like it and how it played. I don't really like how it looked. But the new reworked model of the Hydra looks so cool. It looks much more fitting with the aesthetic of the game, much more simple lines, less curvature, less colour, more gritty. It just looks like a proper Halo weapon, in my opinion, compared to where it was in Halo Infinite. In Halo 5. And then the other two from the December 2020 that we've had confirmed is the M41 Spanker rocket launcher. Again, sticking with that classic rocket launcher design, not fiddling around with it like they did with Halo 5. And we have the S7 sniper rifle. Again, that's more similar to the Halo 5 model. And then the only confirmed render that we've had of the Covenant weapon so far, again, we've obviously seen the Ravager and we saw the Mangler, I think it was as well. But the only render we've had so far is the Needler, which again goes back to that kind of classic blue and pink colour palette from the previous games, not the kind of this browny colour that they had in Halo 5. I'm a massive fan of how this Needler is looking. So yeah. That pretty much brings everything together so far that we've got on the sandbox in the majority of details. Obviously, I'll keep filling people in with breakdowns of some of the blog posts moving forward. I'm sorry this one's been a bit late. I've been busy with work and other videos as well. But be assured, Halo Infinite news will be coming to you as we move through the coming months before we get to the release of the game this fall. So, as always, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure you leave a like, head over to InstallationX and subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications for more Halo Infinite and Xbox details. Please make sure you follow myself and the channel on social media with links in the description. Let me know your thoughts on all the new weapons in the comments section. And as always, I'm Sykes, and for more on Halo Infinite and all things Xbox, stay tuned to InstallationX. Bye, guys.